Joining us now to discuss all of this is Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett. Congressman, great to have you with us. I want to first start by talking a little bit about Tennessee. It is one of the states that does have these trigger laws. So we understand that in 30 days, not only will the 6-week abortion ban known as the heartbeat bill that was passed, that will go into effect, but also it will be a felony for anyone seeking an abortion or performing an abortion. And correct me if I'm wrong on all of that, but how do you plan to enforce that?
Well, it's at the state level, and it's through the doctors who would perform an abortion would be the ones held guilty by that law. And you're correct, we are a trigger state. And oddly enough, I saw on one of the Planned Parenthood or so-called Planned Parenthood websites that they were no longer providing abortions and would direct you to where you could get one. So I think we pretty much stopped abortion in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, I see that they held a conference call and they said that this is a public health crisis. What is your response to people in the state right now in the wake of this decision?
Well, I think your prayers are answered. Overwhelmingly, the state of Tennessee is a pro-life state, and we believe that life begins at conception. And, you know, we're not going to yield to these punks at Antifa or any of these other radical groups that try to get in our face. Tennesseans are known, they're not going to back down from a fight, and they'll stand up for the unborn. And ultimately, I think the Lord's going to bless us for that.
Yeah, and Congressman, just pivoting for a moment, we know that President Biden signed that bipartisan legislation that originated in the Senate on gun reform to prevent the mass shootings that we've seen in the wake of Uvalde and Buffalo. The president has signed that. It obviously passed in the House. Were there any measures in there that you found would be helpful in preventing another mass shooting?
Not really, ma'am. Most of it was just outlawing what was already illegal, straw sales, things like that. It's just a way to erode our Second Amendment rights, and it just continues on that path. And that's what the president is stated as his purpose, and that's what they'll do. And ultimately, they want to stack the Supreme Court. And you've heard all the arguments, I'm sure, in judiciary. My friend Jim Jordan was very, very creative in pointing that out several different times. And so I don't see anything other than eroding the Second Amendment. And you know, they always call it bipartisan. I think they had 11 or 12 Republicans that voted for it, and they live in very liberal states. So they were that's probably the main reason they voted that way.
And looking ahead, we know that the Supreme Court is supposed to be issuing a few more opinions on Monday. One of the big ones that we're expecting is whether the Biden administration must enforce the Trump-era policy known as Remain in Mexico, but formerly known as Migrant Protection Protocols, which requires asylum seekers to wait in Mexico for their cases to be heard. You know, I'm not sure that there's another case in the Supreme Court right now that you could compare that to, but how successful do you think the Biden administration may be in their effort to overturn that policy?
Well, I guess I give them an A for effort and F on content. It's ridiculous. You expect somebody who comes here illegally is going to be put into and then is turned loose in our country, given a cell phone, given clothes, given shoes, and then they bring them to places in East Tennessee, for instance. They've flown them in here, and then they bust them out into different areas, and they turn them loose. And then they expect them they're going to, after they're here, they're going to turn around and come to court when they're summoned. That's ridiculous. It's good law. President Trump was correct in enacting it. They need to stay in their own countries, seek asylum there, and then come over legally. That's the way the system was set up. Right now, with over 2 million illegals that have come in this year, it's just out of control. There's no stopping it. And then the dozens of people on the terrorist watch list that we've caught. Now, the liberals will tell you the system works. The system does not work. It's like Swiss cheese down at the border. It's very porous, and they know it. And they're just it's more influence of the far left and the woke policies, and I believe you'll see the American public's going to rise up on Election Day and overwhelmingly throw them out.
The January 6th committee, those hearings have largely been overshadowed by a lot of what we've already discussed right here, including the Supreme Court ruling. We're hearing that there may actually be an extension of these hearings as the committee says that it has more evidence and it plans to perhaps question more people. Where do you think the committee is going with this right now? Is the strategy, obviously the committee's been accused of being highly partisan in nature, but is this, how does this bode for the Democrats going ahead into the midterms?
I think it just shows how out of touch they are with the American public. As I told the lady from ABC, I don't know who they thought they had on, as I told her ABC would be a dinosaur and that more people were watching the Cartoon Network than were watching these January 6 hearings, especially the night they put it out on every available station that would swallow it. It's clearly they are so out of touch with the American public. No one is following this. When gasoline is at over $5 a gallon, overdoses, over 100,000 of illegal drugs that are coming over our southern border, child trafficking, inflation, those are the things they need to be focusing on. Yet they keep focusing on this because of Speaker Pelosi's hatred of Donald Trump and all the members up there. And the American public is so far past this, ma'am. They need to move on. And they won't, though, because of their hatred. And you see it in their eyes. They're just obsessed with this, and the American public is ready to move on. And that shows when they thought the Supreme Court was going to release the other day, and then they canceled the hearings all of a sudden, and they said, oh, we've got new evidence. They keep saying they got new evidence, like when Adam Schiff said he had new evidence during the when they were putting President Trump on trial. You know, it just doesn't happen.
Perhaps we can say repositioned evidence. Congressman, we appreciate you being with us. Thanks so much for joining us on Saturday Agenda.
Thank you, Kelly. It's been a pleasure, ma'am. Thank you.
Absolutely.